Much like the Nismo R34, which of course I ranted about on the channel, this is one of those vehicles where it shouldn't have to be talked about that way. This car did nothing to deserve any kind of hate, and I can understand why some players, maybe who are adverse to conflict or don't like criticism, whatever it is, maybe you just love the car, love Gran Turismo, love Polyphony. I understand that if it's a part of your childhood, and especially if you're still younger, you can have that kind of defense that you automatically feel welling up inside when somebody critiques something that you enjoy. The problem is that's a part of life. Now, of course, there's a difference between just complaining for the sake of it and making a point, and to me that is where the difference comes in. This car is not bad. Much like the Nismo, it's more about the packaging than the car itself. Some things I don't care too much about, like the fact that we're not told the spec. I kind of like that in a weird sort of way, because you can sort of secretively find out using the garage menu to filter by power and weight, and that's exactly what I did. So if you're curious what the specs are, it's got 195, maybe 194 horsepower, and it weighs 1,050 kilos. So those are the specs on this car. Nothing crazy, and more importantly, nothing that would deserve a 120 grand price tag, that's for sure. The main reason for those two things, though, is intrinsically linked. Of course, the price is higher, and you're not told the specs, because specifically, this is not a production version that's supposed to be in the game. They're representing this as being essentially like the show car version, the concept, if you will. There's kind of a precedent for that in Gran Turismo's past. If you look, for example, at the Black Mask GTR, certainly if I recall correctly, in the case of the masked Corvette, the C7, I seem to recall that those were in some cases more expensive, and I could be wrong, but I think they were more expensive than the normal versions. And even if you discount those test mules, concept cars do tend to have a hefty price, for the most part, certainly high performance ones. So I'm not really annoyed about that per se. The thing in the case of this car is more so that it annoys me that so much time and effort was put into this. Like, why this? What makes this car special? Why should we care? Why should we be on board with this car, not necessarily just having a six-figure price tag and a weird thing where you can't modify it yet for no real good reason aside from, ooh, mystique. Sure, whatever, but if you're adding it in Spec 3 or whenever that you can modify it, that's literally only a couple of months difference. So who really cares? It almost gives me shades of like the weird Bulgari watch integration with the VGT and those kind of weird choices that they make. When we are told, whether or not you choose to believe it, that so much time, so many resources and months of prep and recording and blah 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 goes into adding these cars, again it's the same old question, and I'm sure for some of you get sick of hearing it, and the problem with hearing the same critique over and over is that it gradually seems to mean less and less to you. You're like, yeah, I know the critique, but I don't really care anymore. The problem is it doesn't make the critique any less valid. It still begs the same old question. Will it hot dog? No, it begs the same old question, which is, why this car? If this car is added, there should be a good reason. And what is that reason? Being a concept, being a pre-production, sure, that's cool, I guess, but it is at the end of the day just an MX-5. So what does it actually perform like? Well, it's like an MX-5. You know, it's a nice little car. It does exactly what you'd think. It's light, it's got a decent amount of power, it's definitely quicker than the other little MX-5s. With the caveat, of course, this is definitely way faster than a normal MX-5 if you don't modify the normal MX-5 to be more powerful than this car that you can't modify. So yeah, it's technically better, but it's kind of like saying that a Citroen can overtake a Bugatti if the Bugatti is doing 30. And for those who are perhaps curious, the point level on this car is of course higher as well, at just under 482 in standard form. Standard form being the only form for this car at the moment, because all you can do is change the tyres pretty much. Even in terms of like the visual mods, the only stuff you can really do to it kind of just turns it into a normal MX-5. So again, I was really hoping that we'd have something special here, something that would make it feel and look and kind of have the vibe of something that does feel more, well, special. Not to keep using that word, but you want the car to feel justified, and it just doesn't. We've already got track-focused MX-5s in the game. We've already got racing versions of Mazda, so I don't know, I'm over this car, you know? I guess that's all I've really got to say about it, because if the car doesn't even do us the justice of giving us specs to read, why should we care? So there's really not much else to say. It performs in exactly the way you'd think. There's nothing special. It's just an MX-5 with a fancy paint job and a weird status in the game. That's it for my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours, and more importantly, that brings us to a close when it comes to 1.63. In terms of what's happening in the next couple of months for the game, a few people noticed on the Discord that the Spec 3 update, I believe, is being referred to as 1.64, and that of course is very interesting because it would indicate there's probably not going to be anything in between, or at least very minimal, if anything, in between. The only thing I would probably see happening, if at all, would be some kind of corrective update maybe, you know, like to fix a glitch or a bug or something, kind of like they did this time around with fixing the Corvette's boost system a little bit, but more than likely I would say that for October and November we probably won't be getting any updates in GT7. Even knowing that something good is coming, going to be difficult, I think. A lot of people are going to get pretty bored, if you were playing the game anyway, that is, and if you do come back for Spec 3 after being away for a while, you probably want to set aside maybe a day or two to download all of those updates, because you're going to have a lot of stuff to install to catch up with all of these patches. What am I going to be doing while the updates are not arriving from Polyphony? Well, I am planning to, of course, make up for that lack of updates in the way that I was kind of already doing when we do get updates, October and November special projects. Look out for those if you do fancy doing something within the game. And coming up sometime, most likely in the next couple of weeks, I have a new Beards and Cars review coming out for my new daily driver. I've actually sold the Mercedes 190 that I was using as a little runabout, so stick around for that review, of course, and I will see you for all of that coming up. But for now, thanks for watching.